Why is no one paying attention to Boston's draft picks? What are they really planning? The Celtics hold 2 picks in the top 32 of the 2025 NBA draft, number 28 and number 32. And while that might sound like background noise to most fans, it's not. These aren't throwaway selections. In fact, they could be the key to unlocking Boston's next dominant era without the massive financial burden that comes from supermax contracts. But here's the twist. This year's draft class is unlike anything we've seen before. With NIL deals and revenue sharing exploding in college basketball, a wave of once lottery-level talents are staying in school longer, becoming more polished, more experienced, and more undervalued by the casuals. NBA. That makes 2025 one of the deepest and weirdest draft pools in recent memory, filled with overlooked gems and late-blooming killers who aren't getting the attention they deserve. Forget the big boards. Forget the mock drafts. Walter Clayton Jr. isn't just some under-the-radar shooter. He's a walking red flag for every team that might face Boston next season. Clayton isn't just accurate, he's lethal. 38.6% from deep on high volume during the regular season. Then, in the tournament, 43.5% from 3, while dragging Florida to a national title and being crowned Final Four MOP. That's not production, that's clutch DNA under pressure. But it's not just about the stats. The Celtics may be setting the stage for a very specific scenario, moving off Drew Holiday, whether by trade or financial necessity, and handing more offensive reins to Derek White and Pritchard. That leaves a vacuum, a very intentional one. And Clayton fits perfectly into that gap. Low cost, high upside, and mentally ice cold when the moment demands it. Yes, he's undersized. So was Pritchard, and that didn't stop him from becoming a cornerstone of Boston's bench. The same scouts who questioned Pritchard's defense are now looking at Clayton with similar skepticism. But what if that's the point? What if Boston wants the league to sleep on him again? There's another layer to this: Al Horford. When Horford publicly floated the idea of a reunion with Clayton, his fellow Florida Gator, on CBS Sports, it wasn't just a feel-good quote. That was a breadcrumb. That was calculated. There's a 7'1" problem, or solution, quietly rising out of Stanford, and the Celtics might be the only team smart or bold enough to pull the trigger. Why would Boston risk it all on a heavy-footed French center who turns the ball over too much? What's really going on here? Maxime Reynaud isn't just another overseas big man with inflated college stats. He's something far more volatile, a rare hybrid of size, shooting, and vision that shouldn't exist at this point in the draft. On paper, he's a high-risk investment, but behind closed doors, he may be exactly the type of chaos the Celtics are looking to weaponize. Most scouting reports want to box Reynaud in as a rebounding specialist who developed a jump shot late in college. That's not just lazy, that's misleading. Reynaud led the ACC in rebounding, 10.6 per game. Yes, but more importantly, he reinvented his game in real time. His three-point attempts nearly tripled in one season, and he still hit 34.5% from deep. Big men don't usually evolve like that. Not in college, not that fast. So the real question isn't, is he ready for the NBA? It's, how the hell did no one see this leap coming? That's the exact type of unpredictability Boston has been sniffing out in recent drafts. Guys with late-stage development curves that confuse other front offices. And Reynaud is more than just a floor-stretching 5. He can pass, he can handle, he finishes with finesse. Sure, the turnovers are ugly, and the foot speed, not great. But Boston doesn't need him to be a full-time anchor. They need a shock piece. What if Reynaud is part of a much bigger plan? Nobody's talking about this. Reynaud's timing might not be a coincidence. The Celtics are staring down a brutal luxury tax, and everyone's focused on who they'll unload to save money. Porzingis? Holiday? Brown in a nuclear scenario? But what if they're not just planning exits? What if they're planning replacements that let them reshape the team without losing control? That's where Reynaud becomes lethal. He's not coming in to be a savior. He's coming in to be a tool, part of a system that spreads the floor, overloads defenses, and creates chaos in second units. If he pops, the Celtics get a low-cost, high-ceiling big who can both punish drop coverage and initiate from the top of the key. There's a violent storm quietly building at the edge of the 2025 NBA draft, and no one's paying attention to it. Not fans, not media, not rival front offices. But maybe that's exactly what Boston wants, because buried beneath the highlight, reels and three-point percentages, there's a name the Celtics might be circling not for his polish, but for his mayhem. Why would Boston gamble on a wing who can't shoot threes? What do they see that everyone else is missing? Meet Ado Thiero. On paper, a flawed, inconsistent shooter. In reality, a 6'7", 218-pound wrecking ball with a 7-foot wingspan, violent first steps, and a hunger for wreckage. His shooting splits might scare off most contenders, but for a team like Boston, teetering on the edge of financial and physical instability, Thiero isn't just a player, he's a tactical weapon. Jason Tatum is heading for Achilles surgery, a red flag that no one in the organization is eager to talk about publicly. Achilles injuries don't just heal, they linger, they change movement, they derail careers. Add to that the growing noise around Sam Hauser's name in trade talks, Boston's most reliable spot-up shooter not named Tatum, and suddenly, AII team once stacked on the wing is looking fragile. 4% from deep over 3 college seasons. Barely 1 attempt per game. That would be a death sentence for most prospects trying to enter the NBA in 2025. But Thiero doesn't need to shoot to cause chaos. Here's what most analysts miss. Thiero was the most dominant offensive rebounder among perimeter players in the country. Let that sink in. Not just good, not just top 5. The most dominant. His game is built on vertical violence. He doesn't glide, he explodes. His straight-line drives are borderline reckless. He forces defenders to foul him or get out of the way. His defensive profile reads like something out of a defensive coordinator's fever dream. Sky-high steal rate, freakish deflection numbers, lateral quickness, and a motor that does not turn off. Think Jay Crowder with jet fuel in his knees. Think Torrey Craig with a mean streak. In a league that values shooting above all else, Thiero is the rare exception, a player whose non-shooting is actually part of the weapon. He doesn't slow the game down to find a jumper. He turns every possession into a fight. Could the Celtics draft the one big man built to replace their most overlooked secret weapon? Boston's front office knows something the rest of the league is trying to ignore. Their interior is a ticking time bomb. Kristaps Porzingis is fragile. Al Horford is running on fumes. Luke Cornett? Quietly effective, but on an expiring deal. And Neemias Queta? A wild card, at best. So why is almost no one talking about the 7-footer in the 2025 draft, who checks every box Boston may desperately need next season, except the flashy ones? Enter Ryan Kalkbrenner. On paper, he's bland. On tape, he's terrifying. And in the right system, he could become the kind of elite role specialist the Celtics have learned to weaponize quietly and ruthlessly. Kalkbrenner isn't sexy. He's not stretching the floor. He's not popping threes like Porzingis or throwing flashy dimes like Jokic. But he does the two things that actually win games in the NBA playoffs. He protects the rim like a medieval gatekeeper, and he finishes everything around it like a machine. Every casual fan is obsessed with the idea of the modern stretch 5 big man. But the Celtics? They've already proved they can dominate the league with a center who doesn't shoot. Drafting Ryan Kalkbrenner isn't about upside. It's not about making headlines. It's about foresight. It's about preparing for the scenario that every Celtics fan fears, but that the front office has to plan for. Porzingis re-injures the foot. Horford hits the age wall. Cornett walks in free agency. Suddenly, the Celtics' interior depth is non-existent. That's not just a crisis. That's season-ending. So what if Boston is thinking one step ahead? What if they're targeting a low-cost, high-intelligence, zero-ego giant who can give them 14 to 18 hard minutes a night, clog the paint, and give Tatum and Brown actual coverage? When the shots stop falling, Kalkbrenner doesn't need the ball. He doesn't need development. He needs a system, and Boston's is the only one in the league designed to make someone like him look essential. So while other teams are swinging for offensive potential and social media highlights, Brad Stevens, might be about to do the most unsexy, terrifying thing a contender can do in the draft. Draft a player who could quietly hold their entire defensive foundation together. And if that's true, then Ryan Kalkbrenner isn't just another big man. Is Boston about to break its own draft rules for a 20-year-old mystery from France? The Boston Celtics don't do this. Not anymore. Not in the Brad Stevens era. Not in a post-title world with championship expectations and a suffocating luxury tax on the horizon. So why the hell is a 20-year-old French prospect with zero college experience suddenly rising on their draft board? What's the hidden play here? His name is Noah Penda, and on the surface, he's everything the modern NBA pretends not to care about. Modest stats, average shooting splits, and no US college pedigree. But if you stop there, you're missing the trap Boston might be setting for the rest of the league. Because while everyone is drooling over high-usage scorers and flashy verticals, the Celtics may be targeting the least sexy player in the draft. For the most calculated reason, forget the raw box scores. Ignore the 10.2 points per game and the underwhelming 30.4% from three. That's what they want you to focus on. It distracts from what matters. Penda started at 19 years old in France's top professional league, a league with grown men, ex-NBA players, and serious international talent. He wasn't just surviving out there. He was thriving, not as a scorer, not as a highlight reel, but as a connector, a defensive freak, and a decision-maker far more mature than his age. ESPN's Jonathan Givony called him a glue guy. That's the clean version. The real story: Penda glues teams together by doing all the things star players don't want to do. He defends everywhere. He switches seamlessly. He reads passing lanes like a veteran. He moves the ball without hijacking the offense. He closes out with rage. He doesn't get bullied by older, stronger pros, because he already is one. And here's the kicker: he knows he's not a star. That sounds like a flaw in a draft room, but in a Boston rotation filled with expensive egos, big contracts, and players who need touches, Penda's lack of offensive ambition might actually be the key to unlocking the second unit. Since 2016, the Celtics have never used a first-round pick on a non-college player. Not once. They've learned their lesson from the Yabusele Zizic swing-and-miss era. So what makes Noah Penda different? Maybe it's because the Celtics aren't just drafting for talent anymore. They're drafting for control. The new second apron rules are coming. Boston is one of the most expensive teams in basketball history. They don't just need role players. They need cheap, plug-and-play, high IQ specialists who can slide into playoff lineups without demanding shots or making mental mistakes.